In just moments, we will be joined by former Secret Service agent Jim Rathmann, who's been on the show many times before, but I can't wait to talk to him about the very pertinent and real information about what's going on with the assassination attempt of Donald J. Trump. Obviously, a tragic day for America, but also an inspiring day that just by a hair length, Donald Trump is alive today. And I can't wait to break down with him just from a Secret Service perspective, everything that happened on this particular day. I think watching a minute and a half clip of what happened, it is possibly the most inspiring minute and a half clip I've ever seen in my entire life. Here you have a man who is being gunned down from a distance, blood on his ear. In other words, just got shot in the head and gets up, asks for his shoes, and tells his Secret Service agents that he's going to send a little message to the general public that though they may try to get him down, he will never stop fighting for America. He will never stop fighting. And there certainly are a lot of things that I want to continue to talk about as it pertains to this situation. I do believe that God had his hand on Donald J. Trump on this particular day. And I saw a picture of Donald Trump, and many of you have probably seen the picture of him down on his knees, sort of his hand cupped like this. It looks like he's praying. And I really do feel like there's a potential that Donald J. Trump was praying to God. And it would be amazing if Donald J. Trump falls in love with the Lord in a much deeper way than he has ever before. And I think, honestly, it's what our nation needs. We need leaders that draw people back to the Lord. Yeah, like I said, retired Service agent Jim Rathmann will be joining us in just a minute. In the meantime, if you don't mind, let me know in the chat, where are you tuning in from? I'm coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. I want to shout out Jennifer Swain, Kat Joy, Amy Heights, and Becky Spellacy. Thank you so much for supporting our stream, even as we are getting started. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And one of the things that I want to do, and probably will um, be doing it a couple of times over. Actually, let me do this. I want to just look at let's see, I want to look at this picture. That way we can sort of get our bearings with everything that was happening, the location of the gunman, where the gunman was at, the location of the wounded rally attendee, which again is an interesting piece of information to me, because that was something that I hadn't quite been able to see uh, prior, which was where exactly were these things taking place. So where was the location of that gunman? Where was the location of the other ones that have been wounded? I knew where the gunman was. I knew where the sniper were. I didn't know in particular where the people who were killed were at. And so I didn't know if it was on the bleachers over here, to Donald Trump's right or left. And now with this picture, I can see it. And so that's good to know. We had snipers, it looks like, on the north and the south of this building, um, north and south of Donald Trump. And then there was that stage where Donald Trump was speaking at. Donald Trump is a rally master. He speaks at maybe more political rallies than any other candidate that I know. He would do 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 in a day. And I have a lot of questions, and I'm not going to try to jump to conclusions. Jim can help us figure them out. There'd been early reports of Secret Service not being assigned to Donald Trump in the level that he had requested. That's a question that I have. And so tonight, feel free, if you have questions, put them in the chat, send them on super stickers or super chats. That type of information is going to be very helpful to us. I just want to welcome Jim. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Long time no see, my friend. Glad that you are here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I apologize for being a few minutes late. I had a little login issue there.
No, it's all good, man. We were able to kind of just give a brief overview, at least of the lay of the land of what took place here. And one thing that I hadn't seen, I finally found this picture, but I didn't see where the wounded rally attenders were. And I wanted to be able to catch a glimpse of that and just kind of get my bearings. Obviously, anytime that there's an assassination attempt on any political candidate over the years, there's been conspiracy theories and things like that. And we have a commitment, at least on this channel, to be common sense and factual in everything that we talk about. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. Just what's your initial take as a former Secret Service agent? This happened. You're one of the first people that I sent a text message to. I wanted to hear from your insight what was going on. But give me your insight. What did you feel the moment that this happened, and then how did you begin to process the information?
Yeah, it's a great question. First I was shocked. The last time that any type of shooting took place with the president of the United States or former president, any type of assassination attempt was back in 1981. So a
Yeah.
long time has passed. I spent time in the Secret Service, and all those Secret Service agents and personnel that were there. They train every single day for something like this, but you hope that it never happens. So my initial thought was, oh gosh, what happened? And then you start watching the footage, and you start kind of peeling it back and trying to figure out, well, what happened? Well, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't fit. Much like everybody else at home, except I have some firsthand knowledge of how it works. So I started going through the process myself.
And I want to put that footage up and kind of do a play by play with you at least
Sure.
before the evenings. But still, I want to kind of get in your mindset and your brain
Mhm.
and help the viewers understand and maybe even give a little bit of your background. You did serve as presidential detail, and you also
Mhm.
served as detail for a candidate who would go speak at rallies like this. And so, are there two different levels of protection between the sitting president and a candidate?
Well, the sitting president's always going to have priority, so they're going to have a much bigger show of force, if you will. All the canine dogs to multiple counter sniper teams to just a bunch of assets that they're going to have available to them. However, former presidents also have security details, and candidates will also get security as well. Is it going to be as big as the sitting president? Probably not. Um, but again, it's they take the personnel that's necessary to properly secure any venue that they're going to work. This is the first time, like I said, something like this has happened since 1981. And as you roll through the footage, we'll go with the play-by-play because I have some very big concerns about what took place, just like everybody else. So we can definitely
Yeah,
take
that's
a
what I
deep
was gonna
dive into that.
ask you, and I think even before I roll the footage, maybe I'll ask you a question about the location of the gunman. It's a little unusual too, just to think that a 20-year-old could scale a building and do this. We now know that there's been plenty of footage, and I have some of it that we can play, but plenty of footage of people standing in that vicinity, like, "Hey, there's a guy climbing on this building right there." Um, is it typical for a building like that to not have snipers or protection from the Secret Service or local law enforcement to just be? I mean, it's like a football field away.
Right. Way too close. So I will tell you that typically the first thing that happens whenever they get on site, they have an aerial view. They get a lay of the land. Where are the buildings? How far are they apart? And so on. They do all those measurements, but then they walk it. And from there, typically you want to secure it for, top to bottom as opposed to bottom to top. You want to take out that line of sight. So for a building, even though the Secret Service is saying right now this wasn't within their perimeter, um, I mean, you look at that photo. That's really the only building that needed to be secured, and it wasn't. That doesn't make any sense at all. So it's only 100 and something yards away. It's a clear line of sight. The fact that, and I know we're going to get all into it with this, you know, 20-year-old somehow getting a hold of a ladder, putting a ladder on there, and then crawling. And if you look at that building, it's angled like this. So
Yeah.
as he's crawling, right, it's hard for that sniper team that's behind the stage, kind of near that American flag that you have there. Um, and from that angle, they may not have been able to get a clear shot because I know a lot of questions have come about. Well, why didn't they take him out earlier? I want to let everybody know that any round that's fired, they have to be accountable for that, especially when it comes to the sniper team. So they may not have had a clear line of sight because he had that little bit of an incline that he was crawling to get himself into a position. And then he also had a little barrier right in front of him that was kind of not only screening his movements, but adding as a little protective layer, so to speak. So the counter sniper team may not have had a good shot at that particular moment.
Well, and I think that that makes sense that maybe that counter sniper team didn't have a good shot. But what doesn't make sense is that it was ever an option to begin with. Actually, someone just sent me this footage. I want to play it so people can get an
Sure.
idea of what you're talking about. Let's see if there's volume to it, and then let me see. Here we go.
That's all we want to do. If he was doing the job, I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with the Gorgeous Ocean, the
Look, they're all pointing.
the Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look, there he is right there. Right there, you see him? He's laying down. You see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And so I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There he
not
is.
easy, because we have millions and millions
I mean, you
of
can see him
people in our country that just
reposition himself.
dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals.
He's
We
on
have
the roof. He's
drug
right
dealers. We have people that
Right
should not be
here,
here.
right on the roof.
It's much
He's
tougher
standing
than
up now.
it happens.
You went right on the roof, big guy.
Up here.
I mean, just what's your initial take after seeing that footage of obviously folks standing there? I mean, this is, at least a minute, 2 minutes before he would unleash on the president. And I do, and I want to get into how unlikely it is that President Trump survived this too.
Right. So watching that video footage, it's alarming to me because there should have been law enforcement personnel in and around that building, but more importantly, there should have been somebody on top of that building. Typically, when you go and you secure the buildings, you make sure there's no access points to them. So if there was some sort of ladder, the ladder's taken away, or the ladder's completely put on top of the roof, so they can't access it from the ground. You have somebody that's guarding any way, whether it's a stairway or if there's something on the inside that allows them to get roof access. All that is typically block sealed, and somebody's putting there to post guard on it. Um, according to the Secret Service, they're saying that local law enforcement had that particular post, and maybe they did, but clearly it was abandoned, or whoever was there was not there at the time, which raises a lot of questions. That person should have never been able to get up there, and there's numerous witnesses stating that they had told local law enforcement that somebody was crawling up on that roof. Now, I will explain to everybody that prior to 9/11, it was true that the radio communications could not go between one agency to another or one department to another. But after 9/11, the FCC changed all of that. Okay. So now, whenever we go and we work events, you can all access the channels, or there's somebody with Secret Service able to monitor the law enforcement channels. And so that way the communication can still flow. The first thing that should have happened was immediately put out the alert that there's a man crawling on the roof and he's armed, period. And then after that, as soon as you know that there's a threat and it's not normal, the detail needed to take the former president off of the stage and put him in somewhere safe and get out of that area. He can always come back and speak later once that threat has been eliminated, arrested, stopped, whatever the case might be. But you can't allow that to go on. And as a law enforcement, whether you're local or federal, somebody is going way above and beyond of what is supposed to be happening. You have an obligation to your citizens, to the patrons that are there watching this event going on, to the protectee, which is the former president, to stop that person immediately.
Right.
Immediately. There's no discussion about it. You get on that roof, or you stop them, you tackle them, you call in assets, whatever you got to do, you stop it. And absolutely none of that happened. It's very alarming.
Well, we've seen this before. Like, I'll put a clip up of a previous time that I had in my mind because I'm a kind of a campaign and election nerd, but this was a previous time from 2016 when Trump had a scare. It ended up not being a threat, but it's kind of what you're talking about.
What happens? I will call up Carrier, the president, because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
There's
Thank
one
you for the
instance.
warning. I was ready for him, but it's much easier if the cops do it. Don't we agree?
Start with Donald Trump.
So that was one time. Here's another time in
Mhm.
Reno. Let me see if I can pull it up. Same thing kind of happened.
When Secret Service agents rushed him off the stage in the middle of his stump speech, there was some commotion in front of the stage. Someone, probably Secret Service agents, started yelling, "Gun, gun."
So this is basically what you're talking about. Like, hey, this kind of thing, it's better to be
Correct.
preemptive on it, right? It's happened
There's
a couple of
it,
times in Trump's
mhm.
history. People run on, they cover him, they take care of him, and then, like that case when he's at that airport hangar, he kind of just turns back around. He's like, "What kind of life? I gave up being a billionaire for this," or whatever he says, and then
Right.
kind of goes on with the show. And that could have happened in this case, right?
Correct. They could, as soon as those alerts went out, they could have immediately have gotten him off the stage. That would have been the first thing to do, just like you saw there. You go on, you create a human, like a human shield around him, and you get him off that stage as quickly as possible to a safe location, and you get him. I mean, that's the number one goal, is to protect the protectee. So in this case, knowing that commotion's going on, knowing it's being said, it's yet to be determined if what radio transmissions took place. That will come available at some point, whether any of those local law enforcement notified, whether it was their own dispatch unit, somebody within the Secret Service. But at some point, that ball was dropped. Your protectee should never be standing there that vulnerable, that long, knowing there is a threat out there that is imminent. And so he needed to be off that stage.
Well, and I've heard some early reports, and you can tell me the truth on this. What's the chain of command like for a kill shot on a threat to a presidential candidate? Do they have to wait until an upper officer has given them permission, or if they see a threat, can they neutralize it immediately?
No, they see the threat. They see a person that's armed. You immediately can go to lethal force. That's just that you don't have to wait for them to fire a shot. If they fire the shot, you lose your protectee. So you got to stop that person before they fire that shot. However, you need to positively identify the target, that they're a threat, they're not law enforcement, and that the actions you're taking is completely justified. In this particular case, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, here's a person crawling on the roof. He's not law enforcement. He's not supposed to be there. That building's supposed to be secured. He's got a rifle. And oh, by the way, he's now taking aim at our protectee. Boom, game over. Again, Secret Service would have taken that action if they probably had the right line of sight, but they didn't have it.
Yep.
They may have been trying to get confirmation from those closer to the scene. I'm sure they had some sort of tactical unit on their way to that building, and so maybe they were waiting for the right confirmation from them. But to get permission from higher ups to take out an immediate threat that's a sniper trying to take out your protectee, absolutely not. And I'll put my money on the counter sniper team every time. They're going to win that.
Well, what I want to do is put the clip up. It's the action's
To our
about a minute and a
country.
half, but let's say we play 2 minutes or so of this clip. I want to run it one time through, and then we'll sort of go back to the beginning of it, and you can
Sure.
break it down for me piece by piece. And you're going to help a lot of people, I think, understand this, because right now, everybody in not just America, but the world is sort of paying attention to this and trying to unpack how could something like this happen, and where was their breakdowns, and then also what are the good moments that we can celebrate, because it's not all just bad news. There are some good things that happen. So let's watch it one time through, and then we'll come back and watch, and then we'll have you break it down.
Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move his hair. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the stair. Stair, get ready. Stair, get ready. We ready? Are we good? Shooters down. Are we good to move? We're clear. We're clear. Come on.
Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold on in your head, bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down.
Watch out.
So I'm sure you've watched this 150 times or more.
I have.
Yeah, and so you're going to be able to give us a play-by-play. If we can just walk through it sequentially, you kind of tell me where you want me to go on the footage, and
Sure.
I'll stop and pause.
Sure. I mean, if you press play here, right? So it's clear that former President Trump notices that something's going on. He notices that his sniper team is now taking a look at something. So something's just completely out of the norm. Now, when the first shot is fired,
So you
for
think
those that
he's
have been
like,
to
oh man, the
combat,
sniper
will
team's
never.
doing something?
Yeah, there's no doubt. He has an idea that something's going on. They're aiming up to something. So he's probably isn't sure exactly what it is. He's thinking if he's continuing on because he doesn't want to excite the crowd with something. He just doesn't know. But clearly he's looking. So it's got his attention. The first shot is fired, and anybody that's been to combat before, when that bullet cracks right next to you and it just it has that sound, you can get shot and not even know you were shot yet. It might take a few seconds before you even realize it. You have that adrenaline that comes in. So for him to have the shot to go through, and then he's like, "Huh, what happened?" Then another shot, he knows he's in some trouble, and he does exactly what he's supposed to do, which is go to the ground.
So they're briefed him. That's like proper protocol for him. Hey, go down. We're going to come and cover you.
So I won't give all of the details as to what we do because obviously that's going to be some protected information. But we do have measures, in place to act as a shield. And so, when you get a little bit further out, you'll see some devices there that help protect the president that's in and around the stage. And then the Secret Service is going to do exactly that, which is to act as a human shield and protect him, get around him, and prevent any further shots. So essentially, they're sacrificing themselves to swarm him and surround him and not give the shooter any more chances to fire off any more shots.
So it feels like what you're saying is this red, white, and blue and star thing is not just decoration. I do have some questions about maybe what we're hearing some of the Secret Service agents say too. Let's just see if I can turn it up and hear what they say just off the get-go. Did she say where are we going or what are we doing?
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, it's kind of that you get into that combat mode and everybody's reactions are different. You have that physiological change. So you can go through the training all you want, right? But when it becomes real, just like you can train for war all you want, the moment it becomes real, people are going to react differently. Usually you're supposed to train with it enough that it becomes muscle memory. So the initial thing that they're going to do, which you see a lot of those agents do, was to go on stage and swarm him and create some sort of human shield around him. Back to you saying, what do we do? She's kind of in that fog of war, doesn't really know exactly what's going on because she hasn't adjusted. Her physiological changes have not completely caught up to her yet as to what needs to happen. It's that scared moment, that fight or flight. You're either going to fight or you're going to flight. It's pretty obvious to know which ones are willing to jump right in and which ones are not, right? So that's that change. You can't really train for that. You can practice it all you want, but when it becomes real, it's completely different.
Yeah, I would say that that has to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And that shot there, I don't know if you want to break down the shots or not, but
So yeah, I'm not really sure what that shot was. Now, the first three shots you hear when this first starts, is coming from the suspect sniper that's on the opposite building. And then you hear a series of rounds that follow it, which the loud concussion one is going to be the sniper shot. Whatever
Like what
that was, whatever, when we get to it here, there's that one incidental
That
shot that you hear afterwards. It sounds to me like that's coming to uh, former President Trump's left shoulder because you can see people looking that way. So I don't know. Could there be an accidental discharge? Sure. Was it another shot from a counter sniper somewhere else? I don't know. But that to me sounds more like a pistol than it does a rifle, or especially a high powered rifle like the sniper rifles. So I don't know if that was an accidental discharge or somebody freaking out in that moment. I just don't
Yeah,
know.
I've asked people about what that was and haven't got a clear answer. Let's listen again, and then we're going to go back
Mhm.
to that moment where they're covering him. But let's just listen now more intently on those shots.
happened?
If you want to pause it right there.
Yep.
So if you rewind about 10 seconds after the shots have rung out, now you know that's coming from the suspected sniper, the return fire. Look at the crowd's reaction when you hear that other round and then you hear the scream. That's where I think there's an accidental discharge. Look at where the crowd looks. Keep playing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
See how they're all now looking to the
They're
right?
all looking the other way. Yeah, that's very interesting. And even some of them are like that guy starts to stand up to see what's going on.
Correct.
Wow.
So like I said, I have no confirmation one way or another, just taking a pure guess, and I don't want to spread rumors or anything like that. But in my own opinion, I believe that to be an accidental discharge.
Hmm. From an audience member.
No, probably somebody that's allowed to be armed. There shouldn't be any audience members in there armed. So, uh, you know, that's got to be coming from somebody in law enforcement.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, they
Very.
won't let anybody. They will not let any armed person within eyesight of the protectee unless you are a certified law enforcement professional.
Okay. So that's the only option then.
Correct. It's my opinion, of course. We'll find out in time.
I hope we find out in time. I think the uh, last time that an investigation took place in a situation like this, it was like almost a year, 44 weeks or something like that before any type of information was made publicly available. Uh, there's some luxuries that
Well,
we have now that maybe didn't exist in that era, which is, we're able to get on YouTube and talk about it and have video replay that they didn't have.
well, this is definitely going to take some time. I don't think anybody should be out there expecting answers by the end of the week or next week. There's going to be congressional hearings. There's going to be, the FBI now has jurisdiction on this, and so they're going to go through every single piece of it because when they put it out, it's supposed to be factual and true to its core. So you want it to be accurate. You don't want it to be misleading. You want it to know exactly what had taken place, how this happened, and then from there, any corrective actions that need to be taken, whether it be, how they set up their perimeters, the ring of security that they're going to do, or how they invite other law enforcement professionals to participate in these events or rallies, or is it even internal disciplinary actions? All that's going to come in time.
I heard a former agent talking about what it was like to be on the Trump detail and working. He said, unfortunately, with local law enforcement, can sometimes be challenging because they're not used to the showmanship that Trump carries, and they get distracted on the job. And he said he hates to make such a broad classification like that, but he's seen it happen again and again and again and again in these types of environments. I mean, and Trump is more of a unique kind of a character in the political realm, that when he comes, it is a show, and there is music, and there is fanfare, and it does engage people differently.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, he's definitely different than other candidates. He conducts himself and carries himself different than a lot of others. But the Secret Service personnel, they're all Type A's. They're dedicated to their job. They're there to protect the office of the president. So it doesn't really matter who it is. They're going to do their job to the best of their abilities. And I know that's ironic to say that after what just happened the other day, but they are hardworking professionals. I will say that President Obama was very much, he was loved by many. He was very personable with people as well, and he used to do a lot of things like want to go to Five Guys and get a burger on a Friday evening, and
Mm.
and it was, you had about a 5 minute head start notice.
Yeah.
And he would walk there sometimes. I mean, it wasn't just send the butler. So they do these off the record movements, or things that aren't supposed to happen, and you just have to adjust to it and do the best you can, and rely on your training and your experience, and be able to give them the best protection possible.
That would have to be one of the most difficult parts of the job, right? I heard Michelle Obama actually talking about when a certain legislation was passed in the White House and a bunch of people came outside and was trying to celebrate it, that her and one of the daughters actually attempted to sneak out of the White House to go celebrate with people on the streets, and the secret the Secret Service stopped them before they could make it out of the house.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certain times that you got to stop them. You got to, prevent something from happening, an accident you just can't manage. But for the most part, they know what's going on. They know what could potentially happen, and they're usually very good and very respectful on listening to the advice of the agent in charge that's there with them, and on whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, or can we pull this off. Um, they usually are pretty good at listening and taking that in, and they understand the job, and how difficult it can be.
So what we're seeing now on the screen is, some final shots go off, maybe a recoil shot that you mentioned, and you start to hear the Secret Service sort of. It feels like they're mic'd
Mhm.
up, but that mic that Trump was using, I think, was just extra sensitive. Is that your take?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a microphone on him. There's also one right above that podium that can still pick up things. You have the media's microphones that are there, so it's not a surprise that they're able to pick it up. Remember, all the Secret Service have their earpieces in; they're on their channels, and so information is flowing back and forth as they're on that stage. Now, the gentleman you see there, to the well, be I was looking at the screen, our left of the T in Trump, the agent that's kind of standing up a little bit, the buzz
Mhm.
cut there. Um,
Yep.
that to me, in my opinion, that would be the agent in charge, because he's the one who goes up there and starts taking charge of what's going on, giving the direction of what's going on. So that there, in my opinion, that's your leader for the service.
Let's hear what happens. I know you've watched it a million times, but
Move it there. Hold. When you're ready, on you. Ready? Move. Up. Move. Go.
when you're ready, on you, move up, up.
Mhm. So I will tell you a few things that's probably going on there. Okay. So when they first tackle them and they get them down on the ground, they're going to create that human shield that I've mentioned before. But there's other things they're going to do too. Remember, I told you a lot of times you can get shot and not even know that you were shot. A perfect example of that, President Reagan. When President Reagan had no idea he was shot until he was in the limo. And it wasn't until his agents got on top of him to keep him protected. And typical protocol, what you're going to do is you're going to pat him down. You're going to check. We do the same thing in the military when you're in combat. If somebody gets hurt or goes down or anything, you're going to check him for bullet wounds, exit wounds, and you want to do a full sweep from head to toe. So more than likely, they're checking that. They're looking to see. They can see the obvious blood coming from his ear that's on his face. They're going to make sure there's no penetration, into his brain that he doesn't know about. Checking shoulders, chest, anywhere that he would have been visible. They're going to start putting their hands on it to check it. So that's one of the things they're going to be doing while they're on the ground as well. Plus, they're listening to the transmissions to hear what is going on with the shooter.
Okay. Yeah, because they're not gonna move right until that shooter's taken care
Well,
of.
you have to make sure that you've isolated that threat. Now, uh, they're hearing that going on. They now probably at this point know from the counter sniper team that took that shot that, hey, shooter's down. They know it. They know it without a doubt, right? But what they have to do here is they have to be able to move in unison. So they're saying, when you're ready to move, move, move. And so they're trying to do it as a group, because you still have to protect the protectee. and you don't want there to be a clear line of sight in the event that the shooter himself isn't all the way down or isn't completely, taken out of the scenario. But you also have to keep in mind, what if there's a second sniper, right? What if there's another one from the other side of the field? So those are all things that they've got to take into account. I personally don't believe they did a very good job at the secondary aspect of it, but the initial movement to get on the stage, get him on the ground, get him surrounded, and start doing those checks, those Secret Service agents you see on top of him, in my opinion, did an excellent job with that response. But as you play this, you'll see the amount of time it takes, and at what point did they just forget that there could be a secondary shooter.
Let's watch it.
Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the stand.
Hawkeye's here. Can you tell us what that means?
So we have code names for all types of assets. It could be in the air, it could be on the ground, could be personnel. I do know what those codes are, but for Secret Service purposes, I won't release what they are, but I'm sure you guys have a pretty good idea. But I'm not going to give that away, and I just can't, because that would get me in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
Derek, get ready. Derek, get ready. You ready? Are we good? Shooter's down. Are we good to move? We're clear. We're clear.
So pause it.
Yeah.
So you hear him say that the shooter's down, right? So they know that that shooter that fired that shot is now no longer in the picture. He's no longer a threat. They got him. I guarantee you the counter sniper's keeping an eye on him, or they're scanning for others, but they've got it in case that guy's moved. They're able to pull another shot if they need it. What should have happened, and as you see there, you have the SWAT guys that came onto the stage. More than likely, those are probably local SWAT. I don't believe those to be Secret Service SWAT, and they could be, but I don't believe it to be. Tactically, when they came on the stage, they were off on the would have been President Trump's left side, our right, their left, his left, okay? And they kind of staged there. But as we know, the shooting came from the opposite side, the direction that former President Trump was looking in, right? Which would be, as we're looking at it, our left, his right. Those tactical guys should have moved over and taken and been up at the ready for any other potential threats. So they need to also work as part of that shield to help the Secret Service up at a ready and scanning all these people for any other threats. But as you see, the chaos of what's going on in the moment, one guy eventually moves to that position, another one goes down the stairs and goes to the left, and another one is kind of up and down, just kind of like, where do I go and what do I do?
Yeah, so basically you're saying they should have formed like a second outer ring outside of the inner ring of the Secret Service
Right
agent.
where that tactical officer is, in the black, they should be somewhere in through there acting as a shield as well, up at a ready, scanning, looking around for any other targets that could appear. Should have multiple of them up there because they are also acting as a shield, but the shot came from that area, so they got to help protect it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. I know just from a patriotic standpoint, what happens next with Trump is, to me, one of the most inspiring moments. This is what you want out of a leader. You want a leader that's strong. I like strong leaders. I like to see him stand up and say, wait. As a Secret Service agent, you probably don't want the president to stop you. It would be my guess.
Well, here's the thing. I will say what happens next when he gets up and he has that moment, that the most iconic photo of our time now that's going to exist. I will say it's a badass moment. There's no doubt about it. But aside from that, he is no longer in charge of how that detail works. Let me be perfectly clear about that. There is now a hit out on you, an assassination attempt as the Secret Service detail. You don't tell me that you want to get your shoes or that you have a moment that you want to do that with the crowd. You're out of there, and we are taking over, and you're listening to us because we got to keep you alive. So how he was able to actually do that, again, a very questionable moment. I'm not in that inner circle, so I don't know what happened and why they were able to do that. But in my opinion, They should have treated it as if there's a second shooter somewhere else. We have to keep him fully protected, get him in the vehicle, and get him the heck out of there immediately. You don't get to wave at the crowd. You don't get to grab your shoe or your hat as it's going down the stairs. We'll pick you up, and however we got to do it, but we're getting you the hell out of there right now.
Right. Like, hey, we can get you some shoes any other time. Now, I want to play this, but I also have questions about the likelihood of Trump surviving the shot. So I'm going to hold the Trump surviving the shot. Let's make it through what happens here, and then kind of go back and talk about that. So, okay, let's check out what happens next.
Come on. Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus.
Let me get my shoes.
Now, I was watching this with my cousin Rose, and she mentioned to me, like, hey, doesn't that person in the front of this seem to be the shortest, talking about the woman Secret Service agent? Like, if she's supposed to be trying to block him from getting shot, or is that a real perception, or is it just the camera angle?
I don't know if I understand your question. I mean, yeah, she's shorter than the other agents surrounding him, but she's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing, which is being a part of that shield. The human shield and covering. You got that one agent there that seems to be the tallest, and he's got his arms up like this. Again, you're trying to take away any vantage point that any sniper could have on the protectee. So you're doing everything and anything you can to keep him shielded, to get him into that vehicle, and to get him out of there.
Bloody.
So we got to move to the bus.
Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes out. My shoes.
What's up?
I love that moment when he puts his hand on her shoulder.
Hmm.
Like, that's my favorite moment, where he's like, all right,
Look,
ready to go.
she's holding her own. So I get my hat goes off to her. She
No, I
kicked ass
wasn't. I
in this
wasn't
moment,
meaning anything
you
about
know.
her.
Oh, I
Just the
know.
height. Like, is there a protocol? Should the agent blocking him be as tall as him to help with that shield, or
Well, she's probably tall in to everyday Americans, but President Trump is like 6'4",
yeah,
6'5",
he's
so
tall.
he's unusually tall. So it'd be hard to find all the detailed personnel that can match that type of height. But she looks like she's probably relatively tall herself. I would imagine she's at least 5'8", 5'9", give or take.
It's interesting too. The crowd, just in a moment of chaos like this, right? It's almost like there's a stability that was brought to the crowd, and there's dead people among them. I mean, there's a guy that's dead
Hmm.
a few feet from them.
Correct.
So they pull the vehicle up.
See that right there? I mean, he's so exposed.
Yeah.
You need to force his head down if you have to because he's so tall. Whatever you got to do, but you got to keep him out of that type of visibility. Again, this is where I wonder how they were planning on getting him out of there. What if there was a second sniper? I don't think it registered at that point. I think the shots being fired, first time that's happened since 1981. You know that shooter's down, but you can't now expect that there's no others. You always have to expect it to be a second shooter out there. No different than in the military when you'd come across an IED. An IED would explode in the ground, and then you're taught to back off of it, push forward, whatever it is. Or if you find a known IED in the ground, there's a certain protocol that you follow. Well, eventually, where do you think they're going to put their secondary IEDs? They're going to put them in the areas where you're most likely going to stop. So you have to always think that threat is out there. So at this point for them, he should have been in that car already. He should already have been gone, to be quite honest. This is taking a really long time, and it shouldn't. And he's getting a lot of media time there with the fist pumps and everything else. I mean, my God, the guy was just shot at and survived, and all that is, like I said, that'll be the most iconic aspect of our lifetime. But on a Secret Service side of it, and I have to stick to that professional side of it, he should have already been in that car and gone. and,
Right.
and he should have been completely protected in a bubble and gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. At this point, we're at exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds since he ducked. So, what do you think is a good timing to get him out of there? Like 30 seconds, he
Well,
should be gone.
well, again, I think they did the right thing by keeping him down. They got word that the shooter was down, but at this point, those other assets need to be there acting as the shield as well. You have all those additional agents that you're going to see that are now floating around that vehicle. They need to all be a part of the plan to get him out of there and get him undercover. So whether they're out there at the ready, scanning, looking for everything, shoulder to shoulder, however it needs to be, and they can go in behind him and get him in the vehicle. They need to do something. You've got one that can't even holster her firearm, which was the same one in the back asking what we were doing. I wonder what you are doing. I don't really
Yeah.
know. There's a few of them that just look completely and utterly confused, out of place. And again, you can train for this all you want, but when the real bullets fly, it's a completely different game. And people are going to react completely different. So as you see, you'll see it as you go. But they needed to be a part. Those special response team guys, those SWAT guys you saw, they should be a part of that as well. If they need to be the lead, getting everybody out of the way, pushing people out of the way, acting as that wall, then why can't they get in some sort of dynamic wedge and move together as they're moving? Need to be something.
Very interesting. So, yeah, if tell me again, I want to just watch this because Trump forces the pause. If you look at it, watch.
Mhm.
The momentum of the Secret Service agents is knocking over the other Secret Service agents, and like a stone wall, he pauses.
So it looks to me like all those agents are pushing him to go forward. Go, go, go. Yes, you're right. He does stop there. But at that point, you don't have a choice. You're not stopping. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to kind of manhandle you. I love you. You might be, whether even if it was President Biden or President Barack Obama or anyone that we are protecting at that point, lots of love, but I'm going to manhandle you right now because I got to get you the heck out of here. And that is it. This is my show now. It's no longer yours. Let's go. And that's kind of how it needs to be treated. I get it that they're handling it the best way that they can, but at that moment, this isn't about politics. This is about life and life safety. This is what you're trained for. You don't get to tell me you're going to stop. You don't get to have that moment. We are getting you the hell out of here. That is my job.
It's good.
He's completely exposed.
It endears me to the man, but from your perspective, I know exactly what you're saying. I love how he puts his arm around him though too, and it's just is that part of protocol? Hey, put your arm around.
I don't, that's going to be an in the moment thing. But you can see the SWAT officers there. You see them there with their helmets on, the tactical helmets and gear.
Yep.
They
Zoom
right
in.
now should be the ones forming. They should split into three, close within arm's reach, and be on that perimeter looking for any other threats and scanning as they're moving towards that vehicle. Them just standing where they are is not doing anything.
And I didn't hear the final count, but I think an estimated 20 or 25,000 people were here on this particular day.
See, they're leading them over there now. Now they're kind of trying to get him towards the vehicle and get him in the vehicle. And look, you got the one guy all the way in the back like that. There's no threat on the backside there, bud.
And there's that lady with
That's
the
over
gun.
here. Yeah, she can't holsters. That was the same one that was on the stage that was saying, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" Still don't know what the hell you're doing.
Oh my gosh. It's
Been on my
embarrassing.
mind for 2 days. I still can't figure that out.
It's embarrassing as an American citizen.
Well, I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for anyone that's willing to do the job. It is not an easy job to do. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts to do that, and to know you're going into it with, if I ever had to put my life on the line, am I able to do so? So I give a lot of credit to that. But with that said, we've got to be tactically sound. It should be the best of the best, should be surrounding that right there. But again, that's that fog of war, that moment where your physiological aspects of you change completely, and you see how certain people react in that moment, and it's right there for you. It's crazy to me.
And so, are they going to be driving directly to the closest hospital? Are they vetting hospitals? How long does it take to get them to, you know, to
Well,
the
it depends. I
hospital?
mean, typically you map out. You're always going to have alternate routes, multiple hospitals, multiple locations you can go to. So, I don't know which one they choose, how they chose it. Maybe based on the severity of injuries and things like that. But they're going to go to whatever they have that's easiest for them to get to, most secure, and to be able to keep him protected from start to finish. So, which hospital they chose to go to, I don't know if it was one that was a few minutes away, it was 15 minutes away, but they're going to go to whatever one's the best for them and has the clearest route.
Okay, and so that's where they're taking off doing that after she.
And I also want to point out too, because I know a lot of people are saying, well, how come none of the Secret Service agents that rushed him pulled out their firearm? Well, because the threat is out this way, not what they're protecting on. Their goal is to become a human shield. They shouldn't be pulling their firearms out because what are you going to do in that moment? You have to protect him. So how can you protect him and know what you're covering up him if the threat's out here and you're now pulling your firearm out and looking behind you? You have to let the other people, your counter sniper teams, your counter assault teams, your local law enforcement, your agents that are standing alone like these people around here around this vehicle. You got to let them worry about what is out in the crowd. Your goal is to protect the president of the United States. You shouldn't be pulling your firearm out at that moment. You have to let them do that. You need to protect the protectee and get them out of there.
And then they're gonna, take off some Secret Service agents. That's all predetermined who's in the car with them, etc.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so they call it PPD. That's your protection detail that he has, for the president. So presidential protection detail. That's what it stands for. Now, if you rewind back about 10 seconds, if you don't mind,
Here or
a little bit
further.
more, a little bit more. Okay, you see that? You go ahead and play it, and I'll tell you when to pause it. So you see that's the agent in charge just got to now pause it. You see that
Yep.
female that's there at the door?
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, I've heard a lot. People are giving her a hard time too. Don't give her a hard time. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. I know people were knocking her for putting on her sunglasses, but she has her sunglasses off because it's probably dark inside that vehicle, and she's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. Get that door open. Let your PPD, your presidential protection detail, especially that agent in charge, get inside that vehicle. Then you secure it, you turn, and you face out, which is where the threats would be. She puts her sunglasses on so she can scan. So if anybody was giving her a hard time, please stop. She did everything she's supposed to do.
We did have some questions in the chat earlier, just asking about sunglasses and, is it just tactical reasons they're wearing them? Are there reasons we don't understand that Secret Service wear sunglasses?
I always wear sunglasses. You don't know exactly where we're looking and scanning. I know a lot of times when you're working large crowds like that, we're constantly scanning hands. But if I see something that could potentially be a threat, I can stare at it if I want to, and you don't know necessarily right where I'm staring at. So that way, you're not causing everybody to start doing this, and then you're creating something that doesn't need to be. So we wear the sunglasses for multiple reasons, but that being one of them.
Okay.
There's no hidden technology in it where it's allowing you to.
That's what they
know,
were
the-
alluding to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that sounds cool in Hollywood, but that's really not realistic.
You don't have,
I mean,
you don't have a
I
map
had
of them.
15 pairs of Oakleys. I liked Oakleys. That's what I chose to wear. None of mine
Oh, you
had
could
any.
pick your own? They're not like
I
issued?
had aviators. I've had Oakleys. You just kind of pick and choose what you want at that point. But again, we can scan a large crowd and we can scan all kinds of people as much as we want. And they don't necessarily know where we're looking at.
So, okay, couple things. One, I want to put up just a graphic real quick,
Sure.
um, of, let me see if I can move this over here, of the head tilt. I mean, I'm somebody who believes in miracles personally. This has to be a miracle, right? Well, I've
Definitely
watched
a miracle.
I've watched probably 50 Trump rallies in my day. Number one, I can't think of one he's had a chart at. I can't think of one. He's moving his head around because he's a showman. He knows he's looking at the camera. He knows that he's trying to, and so he's tilting his head, and then even at the last second, tilts his head in this moment. I mean, break it down. I mean, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle. It's luck. I think the him observing his counter sniper team looking down, that's unusual. That doesn't happen all the time. A lot of times they're up there and they're scanning with their binoculars, and then they'll get down behind the rifle if they need be. But most of the time they're scanning. They're constantly scanning. Um, so that would have caught his eye for sure. You probably had a small group of tactical officers or even agents that were moving over towards that building. So there's a little bit of commotion going on that side, which drew his attention that way. But for whatever reason, he turned his head just at the right moment. Is a miracle, a blessing, whatever you want to call it. His guardian angel, whatever. Here he is today to be able to talk about it, because had he had not turned his head, we would be having a completely different conversation.
Well, my prayer for him is that it is sort of a source of humility for him. I don't know how you could come that close to death and then it not be, something that you're, now humbled by. I certainly think that that's probably what's going to happen in this situation. Now, I'm wondering too about all of the people in the crowd. Obviously, it's a pretty big
Mhm.
crowd. When this is happening, there's people that just have their phones out. I mean, like this lady here, everybody's filming the whole thing. There's photographers everywhere. Would there be any reason that those people would have to have some conversations with law enforcement before they leave? Is FBI? How soon is it before FBI is on this scene? Are they seizing devices? Are they trying to say, is this 20-year-old a part of a grander conspiracy? I mean, it was
Mhm.
until 3 a.m. the next day when they announced the name of the killer.
Yeah, I mean, all those phones that you see there hold potential evidence of either the shooter, or if what if there's even co-conspirators within the crowd. So those are going to be some things that would be captured on video. So they're going to want to obtain those videos. I'm sure the Secret Service, once they took over that scene, everybody was talked to, briefed. It became the FBI's investigation, and so when you have that many people, you can't just sit there collecting phones in a van and so on. So they usually have some sort of way. I actually learned this from a retired FBI agent. When they work scenes such as this, they set up some sort of uh, um, tip line, hotline, some type of thing that these people are going to call into and submit their evidence, their videos. And then there are people that will meticulously go through each and every one. As that information comes in and is submitted, they will go ahead and it comes with their identifiable information, so their names, their addresses, and so on, so they can reach out to them as needed. Um, but all of that is potential evidence on all those phones. And when you look at the crowd's reaction, I mean, you could see the shock. Nobody was anticipating it. You hear them saying commonly that we thought it was fireworks.
Mhm.
So not a lot of people reacted. Some were probably pissed of like, who's letting off fireworks right now?
Yeah.
They don't really know until they see the president go down. Then it's, oh gosh, what are we doing? And then there's some people that are still just clueless. It's never registered with them yet, so they just sit there and keep on recording with your phone. This is terribly tragic, because I'm seeing other things in the crowd that I don't. If others aren't seeing it, I don't want to point it out. But this is a very very sad event. Those bullets were flying and people were hit.
I've studied the crowd quite a bit, and there's one woman in particular that I felt like was hit, and then they released the names of people yesterday that were in care, and she wasn't on the list, and I found that to be confusing.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, people were hitting the floors, covering up their kids, their wives, whatever the case might be. Uh, it's just a terrible event. I just feel bad for my condolences go out to that firefighter that lost his life, and the two other that were critically injured that are now stable. Thank God. Former President Trump being wounded himself, and then all the emotional and scarring this is going to leave on so many. I mean, let's not forget former President Trump. His son was there standing off on the side of the stage watching this as it happened live. That's just terrible and awful for anyone.
Yeah, I can imagine that just as a child watching your parent do that. Now, I did ask people if they wanted to send a question, they could send one in sort of through super chat.
Sure.
Lisa said, how do you feel about 1/3 of women in Secret Service being a hot topic today? You don't feel free not to answer that. I know it's a controversial question.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of the direction the government's been going for close to 20 years now. I will say that I believe there are women that can do the job. There's a few of them in this video that did what they were supposed to do. So to sit there and say they can't do it, I would disagree with that. However, I do think there are some standards that need to be met that some cannot meet. And I think in order to be on a detail such as that, you have to be able to meet the standards. And I think what some of the problem is, whether it's military, whether it's government agencies, or just in life in general, you can never lower the standard to the lowest person. You have to bring the lowest person up to the standards of everybody else. And the moment you start lowering the standards to make it easier for other people to qualify, you lose the talent pool that's supposed to be there. And when you look at a presidential detail, what if somebody had to carry him out? He's what, a 230-pound man? 225-pound man, and now carry that. Now, live weight and dead weight are two different types of weights. And I don't know if people realize that, right? So being able to do that, whether you have to do it alone, that's what happens in the military. Sometimes you might have to carry somebody on your own. You might have to drag somebody certain distances and things such as that. Those are the things we train for. Do we ever want to see that with a president or a presidential candidate? Absolutely not. But these standards have to be met. And from my understanding, some of the standards have been lowered, and that is where you lose the battle. You cannot lower standards. There are plenty of people that can do it. If you can do it, then you have the right, the privilege to be able to do those kind of high classified special assignments because you can meet those standards. But you should never lower the standards to anybody else. So I hope that answers the question. I think there's women that can do the job, but you just got to meet the standards like everybody else. Same thing with men. There's some men that can't meet the standards. If you can't meet the standards, we're not going to loan them for you.
No, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that's a really fair assessment of that whole process. And I wonder too about how coordination would be like if Trump were to hire private security firm to help out. I know it's been reported that he'd requested more security several times over the past several weeks. Is it okay if he wanted to hire and commingle private security with Secret Service, or what's that process like?
I find that to be a slippery slope, and the reason I say that is that his private security details are gonna eventually overhear information that could be classified. I understand that he's not in office or elected yet, so he would get full Secret Service. He could hire private security, maybe to help out with what goes on with magnetometers and things such as that. But honestly, the smoothest and easiest way to do it is just allow your Secret Service to do it. They're trained professionals in it, whether it's magnetometers, whether it's scanning crowds, whether it's providing the protection details. You get people that aren't trained up to standard on how we operate, and then you can have mass chaos and confusion. So, that's kind of the problem we're running into right now with this event. You have, let me break it down for you, right? This happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's a small little town. Butler has a police department, so Butler PD. But Butler PD is within a county. How many other small municipalities are within that county? What about your neighboring counties? You have state police. You have all these agencies that are there working this venue. I guarantee you the majority of all the local law enforcement, whether you're, from the municipality, the county, or the state, most of them probably do not even know each other or ever seen each other before. So how are you supposed to be able to communicate effectively when you have the hodgepodge of groups together? Secret Service knows how to communicate, right? You can get Secret Service agents from the LA office, mix them with the Pittsburgh field office, Philadelphia field office, Chicago field office, and they know how to communicate because they've been trained to the same set of standards. So you can work with anybody within the agency because you know how to operate. But you take those from the outside and you bring them in. If you put them through all the training and so they communicate and operate the same, sure. But is the Secret Service going to train private security in order to be able to do that? I highly doubt it. And so that's what you want to eliminate, is that confusion. It would have been even far worse if you had private security that were just scrambling all over the place and not actually doing what they were supposed to. Now you're leaving the protected even more vulnerable.
That's a great assessment. Now, the Republican National Convention started actually today,
Mhm.
and they were even talking about delaying it 2 days because of the tragedy that happened. I wondered if they were going to delay it 2 days potentially as they were investigating what happened, and then maybe they investigated it and determined that it was an isolated threat and it would be okay to continue to do it, right? Because if it was part of a bigger conspiracy and there could be terrorist cell groups or things like that, then the alarm would have been raised even higher. But I'd have to think that at the Republican National Convention, there's more security than they had originally allotted for. At least that would be my take.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to ramp up security after an event like this. But it's my understanding it was former President Trump that actually wanted to go as scheduled. He wanted it to go on as planned. He was originally going to delay it a few days and decided, you know what? I'm not. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to let this stop what I'm doing. I'm here for the American people. We're going to be united, and I'm going to go forward. Those were literally, I believe, the words he was using. And he took off and went to Milwaukee, and he's there, and he wants to go on his plan.
And he announced his vice presidential pick. Now, that
Mhm.
vice president is going to now have Secret Service as well. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Even as a
That is
candidate?
correct. That is correct. As a candidate, once you become the vice president elect or vice president candidate, uh, you can go back to any one of the elections. If you're a presidential candidate and you request Secret Service, and there are enough reasons to give Secret Service protection, you can get it. So whether we have 4 or 5 presidential candidates, and if they requested it, and there's seemed to be a deemed threat where they would need it, then you can get authorized Secret Service protection up until you either are elected or you drop out of the race. And then once you drop out of the race, your detail packs up and leaves at that very moment as well.
Some reports about RFK were that he had requested Secret Service detail and was denied.
Mhm.
Are those fake reports, or
No,
they didn't meet a threshold, or what's the story there?
no, I think it is. Again, this is my personal belief, but I think it was politically motivated. I just, what reasons, I don't really know. It's just my opinion. You're talking about a person that has lost not only his uncle, which was JFK, but his own father, who was a presidential candidate. He was present when his father was killed in LA. So his family has already been taken out. And now he's a presidential candidate himself who has threats. There are people that were putting threats on him. He requested a Secret Service protection and is denied. I have seen in my time presidential candidates with far less experience, far less history, and far less threats get approved Secret Service protection. So why he was denied it, I don't know. That's up for the politicians and those in the administration to have the ability to confirm or deny somebody that level of protection. They're going to have to speak for that. But I'm certain that as part of this review and when they go through all this, some of those things will come to light as well. But if a presidential candidate is requesting Secret Service protection, you should be able to give them the Secret Service protection.
I feel the exact same way about RFK as you on that situation. Again, my personal opinion, but it does seem to be that, and it has to be terrifying knowing that this has happened twice to his family already, and
Yep.
now especially after what happened to Trump. I hope that there's been sort of a reconsideration of that for him after that.
Yeah, actually, they awarded him Secret Service protection as of today. So
Okay.
he now will have, in fact, as we speak, he has Secret Service personnel in and around him, and now starting to set up uh, the protocols and things that they're going to need with to give him full protection up until he's either out or elected.
I want to watch this return fire because this is footage we haven't
AI has identified.
unpacked. I think. Um, Let me see if I can fast forward to it. It's not great footage, but
Now, this is interesting. What and
obviously that's the gunman. He's down. Let me see if I can find this clip.
I want to really see something that said, take a look what happened.
Do you know what's going on here? Can you break it down? I know it's probably not the best footage, but it's what I have.
Yeah, so there's a lot of footage of that going around. So that would be the president's counter sniper team. So they work in pairs. Um, and as you see, the guy that's in the on his knee looks like he's looking through his scope of his rifle, trying to identify to be able to get off a shot. Now, a lot of people say that that's where the shot was. I disagree. I don't see a muzzle flash. Even on the closer up views, I don't believe that's where you hear the initial shot from the suspect. And what I believe happened with the sniper, the counter sniper for the Secret Service, I think he initially flinches to the fact that it was shot, and he needs to now readjust. When you're looking down the scope, you're kind of narrow in what you're able to see because you're focused on one direct thing. So if you need to move, if you need to readjust, he'd have to come off of it in order to be able to get the sights that he needs to be able to look back down. I don't see the muzzle flash there. I just see literally it looked to me like he, here's the shot and it takes him off guard. And now I'm going to focus in and take my shot.
But they're aware that there's a threat. So one of the
100%.
questions I saw this website that was like 5 questions the Secret Service needs to answer, and then one of them was, were warnings about the gunman passed on? And it's clear that they were, right? Because the Secret Service is getting ready.
So that counter sniper team, their whole goal is to sit there and scan out for threats. So that's what they're doing. That's why they have the binoculars. That's why they have the higher elevation. So they are the ones with the line of sight to anything that they need in order to protect if there's a long range threat at that point. So yes, they're very familiar with what's going on. They would have seen the commotion. They would have heard the commotion. They would have seen the pointing out, like he's over here, whether they picked up radio transmissions, whatever the case might be. Once they take notice of it, again, he looks like he's looking through a scope. He's trying to not only identify that target, but does he have a clear shot? And remember, if you look at that building, if you go back to one where he was crawling on the roof and then it scans, you see that it comes like this. And there's this little bit of a wall in the middle of that sniper position, or that counter sniper for the Secret Service may not have had a very clear line of sight, or had to wait for the shooter to pop up just enough to get ready to fire off his shot so the counter sniper can take his and take him out.
Yeah, I think it's called like the pitch of the building, right? And so he's just on
Correct.
the other side of it.
Correct.
Man, it's like crazy to
Now,
think.
if the counter snipers were able to be up even higher, it wouldn't have been an issue at all. But the fact that it's relatively, and I'd like to see what is the height of the building that the suspect was on to the height of the building that the counter sniper team was on. I wonder what the difference is.
I thought, what about that water tower? That looks like a nice location to put a sniper on.
I believe, well, you could, but I personally, and like I said, I haven't seen video that went longer than what you just showed. Now they have some that are more close up. I'm wondering if that sniper team is even the one that delivered the kill shot. It could have been the other sniper team may have had a better access point or a viewpoint and was able to take that shot. That is yet to be determined. We just know it came from one of the sniper teams. So there was more than one sniper team on that roof or in the buildings.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, you can see
Because if you
this.
look, you don't see a muzzle flash. Watch it go through. When he gets
Okay.
down on that rifle and he's focused in, look, you hear the shot at the exact moment he flinches. And that's natural. It happens with everybody. He doesn't know if he's being the one being shot at. It's in his direction too.
Yeah, and that was the guy I think on the south side.
See right there. Now watch. If you're able to play that through, I don't see a muzzle flash.
Me neither.
Looks up, and he quickly looks back down, but that's when the shot came.
So it probably came from the south tower or the south.
Could have came from the south tower within seconds, but see, there's no muzzle flash there.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I didn't. And so you're saying, and Trump's like totally tracking that there's a sniper right there.
Oh
There's no
yeah,
doubt about
he
it.
sees what's going on. He's like, what in the hell are they looking at right now? And he's doing a great job of keeping the speech going, but his curiosity is like, what is happening right now that I don't know about?
Yeah. One thing
Be
that I
interesting to
told
see when he talks about it.
he's done a couple interviews. Nothing's been pretty, in depth. One of the things that I told people is like like I run events, and I had somebody come and say like, "Hey, these windows are being busted in the parking lot or whatever,"
Mhm.
at an event I had a few months ago. I was like, "Okay," and it could come across as like, "Hey, you're not really doing anything about it." It's like, no, I'm just trying not to incite the crowd to distract what we're doing in this moment. But yeah, I'm gonna have the security go take care of it in the parking lot. So I was just like, okay,
Right.
thank you. But I'm again projecting calmness and stability so that I don't have to disrupt the crowd. And that's exactly what you're saying Trump's doing in this moment.
Absolutely. And look, I will tell you, for anybody questioning the skills of these counter snipers, when I say they are the best in the world, they are. I will put my money on them every single time. They are just as good as your special forces snipers in the military. In fact, most of them were. Um, the level of skill set and training that they go through, they are the absolute best of the best. So the fact that he fired off a shot and it was right in between the eyes does not shock me in the least bit. They are phenomenal. But again, they're going to pull the trigger when they know that they're going to hit their target. They don't want to hit somebody behind it and miss, anything like that. So, they're accounted for that round. He's going to fire that round. It needs to be going straight into who it's intended for and nothing behind it. Nobody, no innocent bystanders are hit. So, if he didn't have a clear view of what he needed to take that shot, they weren't going to take it until they had it. And eventually they got it. It's unfortunate that multiple shots came out before that, but once they were able to return fire, they were extremely effective.
Well, I have no doubt about that. And again, just watching that bullet braze Donald Trump's ear, it's clear that it's a miracle. This video here actually has the footage of, you can see it's not what I was going to click on, of the shooter right there. That's what I was trying to get to. 20 years old,
Mhm.
no behavior issues.
So if you back out just a little bit, you can see that pitch of the building that I'm talking about. You'll want to pause it right there. See the pitch of the building?
Hang on a second. There's just a tiny bit delay. Yep. It's not that it's pretty flat almost.
Hmm. I mean, it's got a little bit of a pitch, but that's all you need. And then it also has like a little bit of I don't know if it's a divider, a wall, a small little foot maybe
It's
that
like a
kind of
rain
runs
gap. Yeah.
across, and that provided him enough protection to where those counter snipers may not have been able to get that clear shot. That's why I think the shot may have come from the other sniper team,
I
but we'll
think you're
find out.
probably right. I mean, how soon do you think it'll be before we find out?
Well, they're going to keep it very tight, tight-lipped and close to the chest until they have it all. I mean, they've got thousands upon thousands of videos to go through, witnesses to interview, surveillance video they got to go through, whatever other assets they had out there that could have captured data and information, ballistics. There's a lot that they're going to go through to be able to determine all of that. So I don't expect to hear anything anytime soon. I think they'll be able to make some sort of statements maybe in a few weeks. But the overall, what exactly happened, I think you're several months away from being able to hear
Um,
that. Hopefully sooner.
I hope sooner too. Now, do you think that this is going to impact the election at all?
I don't think this will impact the election. I think what this is going to do is open a lot of eyes to what is really going on in our country. I think you're going to see a lot of the politicians uh, start toning down their rhetoric.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I get it. It's politics. And a lot of times you want to smear the other side and do what you got to do in order to be able to win, but at what cost? And now somebody's life was, I mean, literally within a millimeter of being taken. I think it's time for a lot of them to take the pause and let's tone down the rhetoric because they're inciting it. And, you know, I just think it's really important for the media, for people that are paying attention to what's going on to be fair all across the board. Let's not pigeon people into one side and then kind of incite that hate and incite those riots and things like that. It's time to hold those accountable. And it goes on both sides. It's not just the right or the left. It's both sides. They do it. And it needs to stop. And trying to smear the other side so much that you're basically putting out false information. As far as I'm concerned, you're inciting riots and you're misleading. And that just can't happen. And there's got to be some sort of, whether you got to start holding those people accountable criminally for the things that they're doing. I don't know what's going to change it, but the political rhetoric that is going on is just, it's out of control.
Yeah.
You know, to see some of the comments that people have made on social media, you know, regarding this incident, like people were mad that the shooter missed. Like,
Yeah.
how, like, where's your moral compass? You know,
It's
I would
terrible.
be just as upset if this happened to President Biden
Me
or
too.
anyone else. This is not okay. It's not okay. This is not what our country stands for. We've had people since the beginning of time with our Constitution, and what soldiers go to war for and fight for and everything else is to be able to have the right to free speech, your thoughts, and so on. That's what this country is all about. We can have completely different political views, but I'm still going to respect your point of view. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I don't want anything bad to happen to another person. You know, so for those that are going in that direction, that are all happy that this
Yeah.
attempt happened, or super angry that the shot was missed, like, you got to really have them. Where's your moral compass at this
Yeah.
point? It's politics.
Yeah, and I think anybody that's online making those kinds of threats are actually going to be held responsible to them one way or another too. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people make threats that might be deemed as credible, and there's some investigations that take place.
Well,
Now, I want
not
to.
only that, but some of them hold some professional jobs, and I'm sure they're going to be affected professionally, you know, from these comments, because somebody's not going to like what was said, and you know, it's just, it's real shameful. You know, it shouldn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. You have your own beliefs, and you have a right to believe what you want to believe. You have a right to support whatever candidate you want. That's all fine and dandy, but celebrating somebody almost losing their life or wishing that that person lost their life, that to me is just absolutely atrocious.
No, it's been horrible what I've seen. Now, I would imagine as a Secret Service agent, every time that there's been an assassination attempt or even an assassination, those are what you study. I mean, that is your protective
Mhm.
detail. That is what you're studying. And you've watched the Reagan footage a million times. For the next 50 years, people lining up to be a part of Secret Service are going to watch the Trump footage.
Mhm.
What are the broader implications of how this is going to be put into practice for educational and training purposes?
Well, you know, they're going to dissect it, and they, you know, and then discuss it. Like, what went wrong? How did this go wrong? And what are countermeasures, and what are ways to defend it? You know, quite honestly, there was a breach of security here. There's no getting around it. You could sit there and say this was local, this was this or that. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Secret Service is in charge of what goes on the ground. They have their perimeter. I get it, but that building was 120 yards away.
Hmm.
That's not real far. That is
Yeah,
really the only building in there. You don't
football
have
field.
that considered within your perimeter. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I will tell you what has happened in the past. If you don't have enough counter sniper teams, maybe they only had those two teams. So you're talking about four snipers that work in pairs, and you didn't have it. Well, you have the state police, you have local law enforcement that have sniper teams as well. You can't deploy two assets onto that building. You can't put a uniformed police officer up there. You can't put an agent up there. You know, the fact that that happened should never happen. It's called rings of security. If you do an overlay of that, you'll see where the roads are in and out. There's a parking lot that leads to that building. There's a reason why you use local law enforcement. And guess where they get the information of what roads to shut down? The Secret Service. We
Yeah.
tell you what roads you're going to shut down because we don't want anybody to be able to get a line of sight shot, whether it's from a vehicle, you know, whether it's a drive-by shooting, right? Look at what happened when you had the snipers in DC, you know, what, 25 years ago. What did they had a little hole cut out in the trunk of a vehicle, and that's what they were shooting out of. So why do you make all the traffic go all the way around it so you don't get that line of sight? Same thing, if they're going to go into a parking lot, you got to have marked personnel to funnel everybody to one location. It has to go through the magnetometers. There's checks and balances for every single thing that goes on. There is no reason whatsoever. I don't care what is being said. There is no reason whatsoever that this person was able to park his vehicle, which by the way had explosives in it, from what I understand, or
Did
at his
yeah.
home. Walk. How did he walk with that rifle? Was it in a bag? Was it not in a bag? Did he have it slung over his shoulder? Nobody's saying anything yet. To grab a ladder, to put it on a roof, and still is not stopped. He should have never have been able to walk to that point, no matter what. And so you could blame it on local law enforcement, but it would be the federal agencies that put those local law enforcement in those spots to help cover the areas we can't cover. Period.
And I just found some drone footage of the area. I'm going to try to put on the screen. This is what you're talking about. I mean,
Hmm.
by the way, just by the looks of that, those two sniper posts, just from my, and I could be wrong, they look to be taller than what the shooter was on. That warehouse that the shooter was on, in my opinion, seemed kind of small. But I could be wrong again. How do I know? But there are those two
Yeah, so
buildings.
that's where your counter snipers would have been. And I mean, I don't know. Again, you have that little bit of that pitch. So I don't know what the vantage point was with that pitch. But again, you should have never have been able to get that close at any time.
Man,
Line of sight is the first thing that you're checking because that is the biggest threat. There are other threats, of course, but people that get in there have to go through magnetometers, and then you have your canine dogs to do their sweeps, and then there's a lot that goes into it. So um, you're much more likely to control that than you are of something that you can't see. You can't, that lone wolf that's out there, that's on that building or in the woods. That's the biggest threat. So what do? You gotta do everything you can to eliminate any opportunities for that. To have a building within 120 yards, look, I think my kids could pull off that shot, to be honest. It's
that's
not
what I
a
was going to
far
ask
shot at
you. Like,
all.
that's a pretty easy shot for just a
It's a
novice
very
shooter.
easy shot.
Yeah.
Very, very easy shot. You don't even need a scope for that. You can use an iron sight and still be able to be effective. It's not
Yeah.
very far at all.
Yeah, that's what I still, and I think that would be another question I'd ask. Like, is there a responsibility the Secret Service has to reassure the public that they can do they're up for this task after this? And I don't mean that with any disrespect. I just mean there are, in some ways, um, a loss of trust in the process because we're still racking our brains about what happened.
Right. I mean, look, whether they want to or not, they're not going to have much of a choice. They're already being called for congressional hearings. So the director of the Secret Service is going to have to go there. The agents in charge, or those that were in charge of this detail, are going to all have to go up and talk. They're going to have to talk to the FBI. They're going to have to talk to the Inspector General. They're going to have to do a lot of briefings in regards to this. And so that information is going to have to come out one way or another. What went right? What went wrong? Where there are a lot of detail agents that were, prohibited from going to this event because they needed to go work. I had rumors that Joe Biden had an event going on, so they needed to go there. Where they spread too thin, that they have to pull, more local law enforcement in than they normally do. A lot of that's going to come out. I just don't know. But again, this cannot and should not happen. And I will say for the record again, something is very odd about this. And my experience with the Secret Service is they are all hardworking men and women
Yeah.
that are dedicated to their job. They're extremely methodical about how they go about their procedures and what they do. They are extremely good. They do this every single day. There is a protectee doing some sort of an event every single day. And the last time something like this happened was 1981. I think they've done a pretty good job considering all the advances in technology and everything else. But it happened. And now that it happened, how do we prevent it from happening again?
Oh,
So there's a
absolutely.
lot of work they're going to have to go through. Is there going to be copycats that come from this? There's no telling. There's probably going to be some sort of international threat, or there could be something that they're going to have to monitor. Or they're going to have to change up some tactics. There's things they're going to have to change, and that's up for the Secret Service to determine. But that's where you have to study this event. Luckily,
We'll give
the
you our
protectee
takeaways from Las Vegas Summer
Oh,
League.
sorry, man. I don't
didn't
know.
lose his, the protectee didn't lose his life, but there was other life that was lost, and this just cannot happen.
Well, I would to just ask, what are your personal reflections on this? And I know you're sharing some of them, but the aftermath of this, your personal reflections, your heart. And I know you just shared some of it, but maybe something else or some more that you haven't shared yet.
I don't know if I know what you mean.
Yeah, I just mean some convictions that you have after this around these security incidences, public intersection of this, and um,
Well, you know, I honestly, I don't think the breach came from the agents themselves. I think the breach did come from local law enforcement. Either somebody abandoned their post. Clearly, somebody had to abandon their post. That person should have never been able to get onto that rooftop. I've heard, I don't have this confirmed or not, but I heard that building that was used was actually the staging area for the tactical unit that was there. So if that was the case, how on earth did this person get on top of that building with all your tactical commanders within that building? So that to me, I don't really doesn't really hold a lot of weight. But I really would like to know who was tasked where, why they left their post or didn't do their post, or how this person was able to walk up. Something happened, because I know and I fully believe in my heart that Secret Service would have placed people where they needed to be. But where did it go wrong? Where did the lack of communication? Who got pulled from one assignment to be brought to another? And the response from the local authorities when they were told about somebody on the roof, to me, is it's unsatisfactory. We now know that a police officer apparently climbed up to that roof and got eye contact with the shooter, and the shooter pulled a rifle at him, and so he went back down. No, that is not your job. Your job is to engage. And you shouldn't have climbed up on that roof without without a weapon out anyway. And
yeah,
again, you have civilians pointing out to you where this guy is. They have a complete vantage point from wherever they're standing. They're not climbing the building. They weren't climbing trees. So why didn't you go to where their direction is and see this with your own eyes instead of trying to climb the building and go, oh snap, there's a guy with a rifle, immediately putting out on the radio. And you know what your job should have been at that point? I'm going to fire a shot off at you. Hopefully, I'm going to hit you. And if I don't, I'm going to let everybody know that there's a problem going on here right now and I need help. And I'm going to keep you pinned down by at least peppering that wall if that's the only thing I can hit, because you're not going to stick your head up if I'm peppering the wall. Something like that needed to happen. That is your job. If a police officer knew it and took no action, you are softer than Charmin and you need to give up the badge. Period.
oh, I couldn't agree more with that, and I think that that's going to be part of hopefully what comes out, right?
I would certainly hope so. It's beyond me. You have a right to protect the citizens that you are sworn to protect, and that is your job. Otherwise, take off the badge and don't do that job. This it's an active shooter situation. Look at what happened to Uvalde. You wait. Look at how many people were killed. You can't wait in a situation like that. You have to react. You have to now draw fire away from the crowd with a protectee over to you. That is your job, so you can protect the innocent life that is out there. And so and again, until it is completely confirmed that that's exactly what happened, I know it's been reported multiple times, but until that is confirmed that that is exactly what happened, and it is what happened, I hope you give up your badge. I have no respect for you as a human being. I don't. I'm sorry. That is softer than Charmin.
I think all of America agrees with you at this point. There's no doubt about it. Jim, I thank you so much for coming on the show
Of
today. Are
course.
there any other final points that you want to add that maybe we weren't able to talk about?
No, I think we covered everything. And if other things come up that you want to discuss, by all means, shoot me a text. I love coming on your show anyway, and I'll come on and be happy to talk with you and your guests about it.
Well, you're welcome back anytime. I'm sure I'll be texting you soon, and there's going to be developing information in this case. Love to have you on for that. Any other case you want to talk about, you send me a text. I'd love to have you on to talk about that.
You got it, my friend. You just let me know. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, brother. Have a great night.
You do the same. Stay safe, I guess.
All right, guys, that was Jim Rathmann, amazing Secret Service agent, was able to share with us lots of valuable information. I tried to, as methodically as I could, break that information down with him. Man, there's just a lot that's been going on. There's one thing I want to play for you guys that I didn't feel like I should play to the Secret Service agent. This was a prophecy, and you guys know I believe in that kind of stuff, and it's a big part of my life is actually believing that I think the Lord can speak to me. This is a man who prophesied something about 3 months ago, April. This is what he said. Oh, someone just texted me and said they're not hearing the audio of the prophecy clip. So let me just bring that up real fast on a different on YouTube where we can for sure hear it. Oh, I know what I did. I didn't mute. I have it muted. Okay, let's replay it. This is a man who heard the word of the Lord back in April. I want to play it, and you guys tell me if you can hear it.
Coming out, and that's whenever I saw Trump, and I saw a red wave coming out of Michigan, and then I saw Oklahoma, and there was embers of people, and they were all on these they had torches all throughout Oklahoma, and they were raising up these torches that looked like fire, and they were bringing forth a new patriotism upon the nation, and it was being birthed, and it just kept spreading like fire all throughout America, all throughout. And I saw Trump rising up, and then I saw an attempt on his life. This bullet flew by his ear, and it came so close to his head that it busted his eardrum. And I saw he fell to his knees during this time frame, and he started worshiping the Lord. He got radically born again during this time frame. I'm talking, people say he's saved now, but he becomes really on fire for Jesus, for what I saw coming. And then I saw people interceding when I saw him winning the presidency through great, the Lord showed me it would go clear into the summer. Great persecution would come on him through the judges and through the law and all these people trying to sue him and all this stuff. But there would be a stop to it, and there things would start to break free come toward the fall. And then I saw him winning the election through the Patriots coming out and voting. And then there will be a great economy crash. Yeah. I saw they had a great economy plan, a crash. Yeah. Worse than the Great Depression. And the Lord warned me about this. It would be a great dark time. But I saw paddles coming upon America's soil, like a shocking of the soil. And I saw Donald Trump praying in the office of the Oval Office, and he was weeping before the Lord with his hands on his head like this, but he was weeping. And there was ministers and people. I don't know if they were senators or Congress people or whatever. I just saw them pacing and back and forth inside of the White House. What is the White House, but it's the Oval Office. Yeah. And they were interceding all inside there, and I could feel the presence of the Lord so strong on this. And then I could see that darkness that was the heaviness upon America with the financial crisis of what I saw coming. It started to lift above the trees, and I saw the blue and the things coming back out, and the green times and the good times coming back again. But the Lord said it would be forth a time of a season of a shaking, and it would be a shaking to awaken. And in this, this would basically that he was not done with America. There would be a great revival come, and it's not all doom and gloom. That's what he said. The sky's not falling. There's a time of, it's like people would say, this is judgment. And the Lord said, do not call this judgment. It's not my judgment. It's a correction. Come on. There's correction coming.
Now, how cool is that? And I want to leave you with this picture tonight of a moment that he basically prophesied. I don't know. I can't say if Donald Trump's praying here. 3 months ago in April, he actually said that Donald Trump would have a bullet fly by his ear, bust his eardrums. I don't know if his eardrum was busted, but I did hear him say to Kevin McCarthy, who's the former Speaker of the House, that he's had trouble hearing out of that ear since, which would indicate maybe it was busted. And this photo here is maybe my second favorite photo of what happened. You see actually Donald Trump with his hand. I mean, I just wouldn't be surprised if he's praying in this moment, that he would be humbled to such a position where he becomes on fire for the Lord. That's what I hope and pray happens. And that he would actually bring the presence of God back to our nation, and that revival would come. How many people think that's crazy? I know some people saying, who's that man? I don't know who the guy is. I don't know anything about him other than I was on a video call, a meeting earlier today with an author who's written a book where he's compiled a lot of Trump prophecies. He told me that man from that video was a plumber. He's not even a prophet. He's a plumber. So that is that. So we're going to pray for our nation together, and then we're going to be done with the stream tonight. So Lord, we bless everybody that's watching. I bless them with your favor and your grace. And Lord, your word actually says we can bring our nation to you. And if our people, you said, would humble themselves, or we humble ourselves, and we ask that you bless this nation, that there would not be a spirit of division in the land. And I pray for Donald Trump, even today, that you would set his heart on fire for you. And Lord, that there'd even be signs of that take place at the Republican National Convention this week. Lord, I pray that you would cover it and protect it. And that, Lord, you'd bring safety to this nation that's always been a bright beacon of hope to the world, that it will continue to be a bright beacon of hope that evangelizes and revitalizes and brings the gospel to the ends of the earth. Lord, I pray that this nation will be used by you. And so we partner with that prophetic word that's been spoken in Jesus' name. Amen. 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 Amy, Cat Joy, Amy, Cat Joy, Jennifer Swain, happy caffeinated couple, Cat Joy, Linda Carlino, Miss Connie, Cat Joy, Amy, Jennifer Swain saying caboose time, Cat Joy, Mish Michelle, Amy, and Renee. Thank you guys so much for your super stickers. Renee says, Tyler, I love prophecy. I've seen so much from the past several months that are coming to pass. It's exciting to be alive. I love it. I think we're living in one of the most exciting times to be alive. We are seeing the fulfillment of so much prophecy before our eyes. And we're seeing it take place in Israel. We're seeing it take place in Egypt. We're seeing it take place in the United States of America. And I want to partner with what God speaks, his best. Cat Joy, thank you so much for those gifted memberships. Congratulations to everybody today who has a brand new membership to the Feller family. We also have a private Facebook group. If you're a part of our Feller family, we want to invite you to be a part of that. Just go search Feller Fam on Facebook. It will ask you a couple questions, but we want you to be a part of that if you're on Facebook. Crazy Clemson Mama, thank you so much for your support. You are awesome. Listen, we love you guys so much. Thank you for being on the stream with us tonight. If you found this stream exciting or helpful, do something that I rarely ask, but I do think it was an important stream. Take the link, share it to your family and friends if you don't mind. Share it on your Facebook and your Twitter feed, and allow people to get to experience what we experienced today by talking to Jim on the stream. Thank you guys so much, and we'll be back again very, very soon.